all face challenges almost every day. From defective technology to trouble with colleagues, we are all put in difficult situations and have to perform unfamiliar tasks. Luckily for us, we become quite good at adapting to these challenges, and eventually, we develop problem-solving skills in response to these. Every time that we're exposed to a challenging situation, we develop our understanding of ourselves and our understanding of the world around us. After we've been exposed to a certain challenge enough times, we eventually become habituated to it, and our response to that challenge becomes subconscious. However, sometimes the understandings that we arrive at in response to the challenges fail us. Sometimes our subconscious responses to challenge cease to be useful, and instead, they interfere with our ability to understand a situation. Sometimes we face situations that are too much for us to tackle on our own, and we require someone to help us overcome these challenges. In these situations, we seek therapy. The therapist faces a daunting task. They must help the individual understand why something was challenging so they may adequately prepare that individual to face the same challenge later. Take public speaking, for example. An individual could seek therapy to help with their fear of public speaking. However, their experience of public speaking is very unique to them and in many ways inaccessible to the therapist. My experience of standing up here today in front of you all is highly contextualized, and my experience of being up here today is embedded in my memories of past experiences and my expectations of future experiences. Additionally, the challenge of public speaking has the ability to uncover challenges within an individual's beliefs about themselves and their beliefs about others. All of this is so ingrained in the lived experience of that individual, they may not even realize that their memories of past failures, or perhaps their doubts about their academic ability, are influencing their current fear of public speaking. How, then, can we expect a therapist to assist the individual who is struggling with public speaking strictly through means of discussion? Perhaps the mechanism of challenge can be hijacked and employed for the purpose of therapy. Just like how subconscious conflicts with our memories and our performances of identity can be revealed in public speaking, could a therapist pose tasks for the purpose of raising awareness of said conflicts? Could a therapist pose challenges to an individual in a structured manner to help them develop positive problem-solving skills? Questions like these have inspired my question. What is the value of challenge in therapy? I chose the word value because this word effectively directs my inquiry. I want to know how challenge could be important or potentially useful to therapy, and value is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as the regard that someone is held to deserve, the importance of, worth, or usefulness of something. When it comes to a challenge, I actually created my own definition of challenge, as I found other definitions insufficient. This definition is a structured and facilitated task that is intended to create an unfamiliar experience with a felt difficulty. The importance of including the phrase a structured and facilitated task is this distinguishes by challenge from interpretation of challenge that reduce it to things that are just difficult. A structured and facilitated task originates in the field of outdoor education, and this field utilizes challenges for educational purposes. The phrase unfamiliar experience is also very important to my definition of challenge, because when we face unfamiliar experiences, we have to employ our problem-solving skills. Finally, the phrase felt difficulty originates in John Dewey's writing on experience and education. The importance of including this phrase in my definition is felt difficulty places the challenge in the context of the person experiencing it. There are challenges that are unanimously difficult for all of us. However, take public speaking for example. We all experience that at a different level of difficulty, and this recognizes that. I also arrived at my own definition of therapy. This definition is the informed practice of facilitating self-transcendence through education. I chose the phrase informed practice because practice is defined as both a profession and an application of theory, and this is exactly the way that I intend to approach therapy. The phrase facilitating self-transcendence through education places my definition of therapy within the field of philosophy, namely John Russell's writing on human experience. Self-transcendence is essentially the ability to rise above those internal conflicts that I described earlier. So, one of the big lenses that I want to approach my question through is cognitive psychology. Writers such as Daniel Kahneman, Aaron Beck, and Steven Pinker have written on this subject, and I tend to read these books to improve my knowledge of it. Cognitive psychology studies thought patterns, and has influenced the field of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the most prominent and successful empirically based therapy methodology. Studying cognitive psychology is important because there are very cognitive experiences related to challenge, such as stress responses and problem-solving behaviors. Finally, cognitive psychology offers a perspective on development, how we develop these thought patterns. And therefore, once we understand how we can develop thought patterns, we can utilize that as we try to correct them. I also want to approach this question through the field of educational theory. The importance of this is that writers such as John Dewey and Lev Vygotsky have talked about the value of challenge in education. And if I can understand how challenge has value in education, I can help to draw parallels between that value in education to the value that it might hold in therapy. I intend to study methodologies such as experiential education and project-based learning, as these methodologies include challenge in teaching and implement them. Additionally, I want to study outdoor education. Outdoor education is a very unique field in that they also implement challenge in teaching, and they see value in challenge. Finally, I want to study high-impact practices within educational theory. What makes education very successful, and how can we be good teachers? It's important that we consider that a therapist is essentially a teacher. I also want to study this question through the lens of phenomenology. Phenomenology is a branch of continental philosophy that focuses on how we structure experiences and how we structure our consciousness. Writers such as Maurice Merleau-Ponty, John Rousseau, Michael Polanyi, and Harry Prosch have written on this subject, and I intend to investigate these books to improve my understanding of phenomenology. Phenomenology is important to therapy because phenomenology has influenced what's called the humanistic approach. This humanistic approach has been evident in practices such as client-centered therapy and other very important approaches to therapy. Phenomenology offers a unique perspective on questions such as, how do we understand unfamiliar experiences? How do we experience challenges? And how do we understand others? Now, unlike cognitive psychology, this field is not empirically tested. However, it offers a different and unique perspective, and I intend to incorporate that in my understanding of challenge and therapy. Finally, I intend to study counseling. Counseling is important as it's essentially the practical application of all that theory that we just discussed. Writers such as On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers, Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung, and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl both discuss this subject. And it's important for me to read these texts because I can't actually take counseling courses at Quest, and it is an unfortunate reality. But without knowing how to practically apply all of that theory, it will be very useless to me. I want to know how I can apply that theory. I want to know what popular methodologies exist within counseling. Because if I can understand these methodologies, their principal theories, I can perhaps apply challenge and see how challenge fits within this. For my experiential learning, I intend to work in wilderness therapy. Wilderness therapy is very unique because they utilize both challenge and therapy. They guide backpacking trips normally, and they facilitate therapeutic interventions in this setting. Now, the interesting thing about wilderness therapy is that when interviewed, most of these companies cannot explain the theoretical support for why they do their work in the wilderness. So working for these companies will allow me to potentially address that gap, apply all my theoretical knowledge that I gained through reading the previous text to these fields. Additionally, my 4 years of experience as a wilderness guide will allow me to offer a unique perspective and be of service to these companies. Finally, for my keystone, I intend to create what is called an integrative approach. An integrative approach is when you take multiple different fields within therapy and you unify different elements under them within a central theory. the unifying element that I want to approach all these different fields is challenge. I want to see how we can compare challenge to cognitive behavioral therapy, the humanistic approaches. I want to see how we can connect how challenge is developed in educational theory to counseling. And finally, after making all of those connections, we can truly ask the question, what is the value of challenge in therapy? Thank you.
You briefly mentioned your experience in outdoor education, and I was wondering if you could speak to how that's influenced your question at all.
Cool. Thanks for that question. So the interesting thing is, in no way, shape, or form do I perform a role similar to a counselor. But what I've seen in my experience as an outdoor educator is there's something transformative that happens when I challenge people. You know, I set goals like I'm going to teach this kid how to belay, or I want to, have someone be able to develop a trip plan. But aside from those goals that I set, I see other things being accomplished when I challenge people. I see these kids return to me after being in my camps for multiple summers, and they seem different after that. But they seem like they grow, and I hear this from stories from parents elsewhere as well. So I guess my experience in outdoor education has really made me curious of challenge, and made me also think that perhaps we are underutilizing challenge, and that there's something more to it. Yeah.
I'm really curious, personally, just what your definition and scope is of therapy and counseling. Are you specifically looking at the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of therapy is you sit in a room on a couch and someone talks to you. But are you looking at other places where people seek therapy? For example, religion and faith, or there's different systems like Arm Beta, which categorizes people's body types into how they can seek better health.
Yeah, so I'm gonna quickly go back to my definition of therapy by John Rutan, which is facilitating self-transcendence through education. The lens that I intend to approach therapy through is helping someone rise above conflicts that they have within themselves through someone else assuming an educator-like role. And that can happen in a lot of different settings, and I believe that happens through developing a very strong connection with the person at hand. So perhaps if someone is religious, that facilitating of self-transcendence needs to be rooted in religion. Perhaps if they're not, then that won't be useful. So I guess I'm very interested to study all the various different avenues that counseling happens in, so then I can apply that to challenge.
One more question?